Okay, call this meeting to order at 11:30, Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. We're here to discuss what we want to do with the building inspector contract and position with planning and zoning. And planning and zoning, do you guys want to start us off?
With your specific questions, we have the contract, and we're crafting a letter if needed to rescind the contract after that decision is made. In lieu of that, we will need to float the position for our own building inspector, and we have included that in the budget documentation we had from last week. Coming out of that meeting, we were to go crunch some more numbers on what that position really meant, because there was other expenses that weren't included in that original go-around. So we prepared that and submitted that to you. So for the salaries, the changes in the benefits, and then through the expenses line items, we went and added in expenses that we thought were reasonable for bringing on the position of a building inspector, mainly for fuel and automotive expense. I think we can cover most all the other expenses with the same budget we have with P&Z, because most of that work is submitted to the building inspector anyway. So so those are the line items you have in front of you, and we put those numbers in there. And the other decision so if there's questions about those, we did make I don't think we corrected yours. There was a discussion on the copier. We got confirmation that the $1,700 was the annual maintenance fee, and so it had been reduced from the $1,850. So we'll have to adjust those numbers. We did get confirmation on that. We reduced the. Do you want me to go through them line item by line item again, or?
Well, first, I think let's deal with the main issue at hand, and for the public, a little background. The county pays out to the city right now approximately at $100,000 a year in our fees for building inspection, etc. I think the argument before the board is, for $100,000, could we not have our own inspector, and then the county overall, between the city and the county, would have two inspectors, so there might be more time available for code enforcement, and that we could still do this for under the $100,000 we're spending. So actually gaining a little on our budget by moving the building inspector position back into the county. Is that a fair summary of what we're talking about? Yes. Okay, so that's the first thing that I think we should probably take a vote on, is if we want to gratefully discontinue the contract with Kellogg for building inspector services, again based totally on budget and finances. We've been happy with the service we've been getting, but financially it would be better for the county budget to do it this way. So I think we needed that decision, and then we could look at the numbers and make some decisions based on that, or okay what they have presented to us here. Would anybody care to make a motion on the discontinuing the contract with Kellogg and hiring our own building inspector?
I'll motion to discontinue the contract and hire our own inspector with Kellogg.
And I've been gone, so I don't know if you guys already did the figures, and obviously you know what's.
Yeah, it's an actual cost savings.
Cost savings. Okay.
So I'll second it, since you haven't been here as a part of it. Any other questions for you on this issue? So we're spending $100 and some thousand with the city. We bring that 100 back to the county. We use part of it to hire, and the rest of it is just gain on the budget.
And that too, and it's money sense, but it's also code enforcement, which we have been unable to do because we don't have the staff to do it. So it's with a building inspector / code enforcer, it would be easier, because he'll be out there issuing the permits or telling people, well, no, you need to issue a permit, red tagging them, and And
So this
we
will
just
help
gotta
us
have that.
enforce
Yes.
them to
More enforcement.
and collect the fines and whatnot that have
For
not.
sure.
Because we're limited.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
Sounds
we have a
good.
motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
If not, let's take it to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously that we will discontinue the contract. And again, I've already reached out to Kellogg. I've met with the mayor. With Dan and I met with the mayor, and I've emailed them to let him know that this was probably coming this direction and that it was a financial decision on the county's part, not a reflection of the service we've been getting. We've very much appreciated the service we've gotten.
Yes.
Certainly, I would like to echo that as well. Trish and I have worked really well with Keith and Mark in the past, and all the staff there at the city of Kellogg. So definitely wanted to make it very clear that it has nothing to do with job performance. It was, they were great to work with and for, and make sure that's clear.
Okay, so now moving on very quickly to the finances part of this. Let's just ask if we have any questions on line by line, but right now you're proposing a salary, an amount of $56,940 for a building inspector official.
Correct.
Okay,
And that would be depending on experience. And
Oh, for
everything
sure.
else.
That's the
So,
okay. And then the other question on the budget that we have before us that we need to be thinking about is we still have the administrator listed as a full-time position. Even though we know that half of that we won't use this year because half of your time is coming out of emergency.
correct. Emergency management,
Management.
disaster services.
Disaster. Yeah.
Disaster. I hate to think of you as Mr. Disaster.
It's okay.
You're Mr.
Disaster Dan.
Counter disaster.
Disaster Dan.
Okay. Feel free to jump in.
Oh, so we proposed it this way so that there would be adequate room in case there was a change in that scenario of me working part-time in both positions. In the past couple of years, we've been in this pro tem situation of doing both, not really knowing how it's going to play out. And so hedging our bet that if we had to go hire somebody full-time, whether that was me or somebody else, that there would be budget for it. I get it in this year of budget constraints, having that much extra budget in there that could go in other places is reasonable to think. And so just so everybody's aware that when you go later to try to open the budget to be able to hire somebody full-time or next year or in the coming years, is that reasonable to
Then it's
budget
going to have
for
to be put back.
be able to pull that money back in? And don't want to establish the precedent that position is a part-time position, because it's not a part-time position.
No. If we
It's,
keep growing, it's gonna increase.
And so I'm balancing both, but certainly that's probably not the ideal situation. So that's why it was proposed that way. Certainly, if we want to propose it as is, which is half-time and half-time, then the numbers all change, and then we can make those adjustments to the benefits, the numbers that change based on the benefits. The expenses won't change significantly because the same work is getting done, but the salary and the benefits number changes. I think we determined that was.
So are the increases, are the increases in the budget based upon, it's based upon the total that we're receiving, that we would receive in receipts from buildings?
Well, for sure, because now we have the income, we have the
Yeah.
increased revenue of $100,000 extra, plus our 15% we normally tweak you. So it's about $115,000. It comes back to the bottom line.
Okay. So we're not going over that line, that part?
No.
Okay.
So, in my mind, I think because there is no current plan to make a change in the next year at this point, I suggest we budget for what we have, which would be a half-time administrator. I understand the logic of planning for a future, but we don't have that imminently hanging over our head. So I just think it would be easier on the budget if we made the administrator actually reflect what we're gonna actually spend instead of setting $20-some thousand aside that, you know, that can't be $28,000, whatever that is.
Because we can open the budget if you were saying you're talking about possibly if we can open the budget, if something.
If
We can open, yeah, if we need to for changes. And
If Dan decided a different structure in his life in the future, then we could open the budget. But we don't have that imminently hanging over our heads, so I just don't see why we would tie up the extra money.
Based on our calculations, if it helps, the difference of backing that back down to the 28,490, 28,470, and then you're backing out the benefits that scales back with that. It takes about 35,000 off that total ask. So it brings it right now that is at 309,934, brings it back to 274. So we're reducing the budget by 35,000 to use somewhere else.
That, the extra income we're bringing in with this new proposal and all, I think it just makes us look a lot more solid. But, this is not a,
Yeah, it's not official. Yeah.
we're not officially in a budget meeting,
right.
so that's just something I wanted to bring up to discuss as a part of this whole
Yeah, and we can discuss that with the clerk to see what
next week's meeting.
with this new
Yeah.
position, will there be new furnishing and equipment needed?
Yes, and so we've included that into these proposed
Okay.
expenses as far as a computer and a desk and
But
those
did you
kinds of
include it with
facilities.
Viva?
we didn't put in Viva because that always kind of just fluctuates. So however that changes per person.
And I think
That
it's,
would add on three, maybe 3 people if we were to add that number in.
so it'd be like 21.
I don't know what it's changed to.
750.
It's still what we had it as last year.
Yeah, we haven't made
Okay.
any changes.
750 per person, so times 3.
Okay, are there any other questions? Are we all okay with this? I think the big issue is the salary amount we're gonna try to use to attract a new building inspector. Are we all good with that?
Yeah, I would
I-
agree.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Then the thing that we would have to do is next week when we meet with the clerk, or if it would help the clerk, same as the other workshop stuff, if we were to take these numbers to the clerk this week so she could figure them in for next week's
Yes.
meeting.
I'll add them to my changes from this morning,
Okay, good.
Yes,
thank
That
you.
way-
and then I'll get
that
them to
way
her.
Peggy gets the
Scribbled on
information.
this, so,
It's
oh, you have one?
no, I just wrote on the. If you want to give me a copy of of what you gave them to them, Dan.
We will, and I gave Peggy and Timmy a copy of that package that I gave
And she
you.
gave,
Okay.
I already have a copy, I scribbled, but,
The,
sorry.
the
That's
changes that she will need to see is the change in the salary and then the changes in the benefits. So we have that.
Yeah.
Prepared here.
Okay.
And the change in the fuel. You changed fuel to account for a building inspector, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those numbers you see on that packet have been revised to account
Fuel
for the
went from the 300 that they were using to 3,000.
Because that's probably gonna be Avery and
Yeah.
Ballard, so that's gonna be, yeah.
The good news in all this is we save money and we up the hours available for code enforcement. And that's gonna in turn change our revenue over time too, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
Making everybody follow the same rules in the county.
And will this help our assessors with new construction role?
For certain,
Yes.
yep.
Good.
And then there's even, there's that excess funds in there to that 100,000. So the probability of looking at a part-time, three-quarter time actual
Code
code
enforcement
enforcement
person.
investigator is something we can consider next spring or next budget cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have some better numbers to associate with that to understand. We didn't feel like we could fund a part-time position in addition to the building inspector because we'd be able to
Because
count
we're
for
trying not to raise the
we
budget.
didn't want to go over the 100,000 we think we're bringing in. So, but we think with the increase in fees and the increase in enforcement, we'll be able to reach the dollar threshold to look at that next year. I think that would be a fitting time to look at bringing somebody else on next budget cycle.
Okay. Anything else, P and Z? That gets us what we need.
You're good.
And then if it's all right with the commission, I've asked P and Z to draft a letter that would come to us to look at. Then I would take it up and work with Ben to make sure that we're properly thanking Kellogg and exiting the contract.
I would agree so.
Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I hate to say it, but I think we have got a job done. Okay. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.